Today, we will discuss a case that once shocked the Chinese international student community. A 19-year-old female student from China was brutally murdered in the United States. After numerous investigations, the police finally identified the perpetrator, but it was too late. The assailant had already fled back to China. Faced with this situation, American law enforcement encountered countless difficulties due to the lack of an extradition treaty between the two countries, and there was no precedent for such a case. To bring the perpetrator to justice, an international manhunt was launched, capturing the attention of people worldwide. However, cases like this always present challenges, particularly due to the differences in legal systems between the two nations. How can the criminal be prosecuted? Where should the sentence be carried out? These are questions everyone is eager to know. The uniqueness of the case also caused immense concern among the approximately 300,000 Chinese students in the US at that time. So, what was the final outcome for the perpetrator? Let's travel back to the year 2014. The story takes place in the state of Iowa, located in the Midwestern United States, bordered by the Mississippi River to the east and the Missouri River to the west. It is also the only state with borders almost entirely formed by rivers to the east and west. In terms of social conditions, Iowa had a very low crime rate and was once ranked as one of the safest states in the United States. Within this state is a multidisciplinary university, Iowa State University, where the world's first electronic computer was developed. The case we will explore today is closely related to this university. Xiao Tong was a 19-year-old Chinese student, beautiful and radiant. She was admitted to Iowa State University in 2012, traveling a long distance from her homeland to study there. Despite living in a foreign country, her sociable and lively nature helped her quickly adapt and become close friends with her roommates and classmates. Although her major was chemical engineering, a field she wasn't passionate about, Xiao Tong's academic performance was exceptional, with a GPA consistently above 3.75 on the American grading scale. However, such an outstanding student suddenly vanished from the world. On September 5, 2014, Xiao Tong had been living in the US for 3 years. That Friday, she went out with her boyfriend to enjoy the weekend. But after this outing, something inexplicable happened. No one heard from Xiao Tong again. On Monday, September 7th, Xiao Tong did not attend classes, nor did she report any reason for her absence. As you may know, she was a diligent student who never missed a class without a valid reason. Some of Xiao Tong's roommates began to worry and tried calling her, but her phone was turned off. While they were concerned, one of her roommates received a text message from Xiao Tong's boyfriend's phone number. The message read, "Hi, I am still in Iowa but lost my phone, so I am using a friend's phone. There is an urgent matter at home, and I need to fly back to China immediately. I plan to drive to Minnesota to meet some friends and will be back in about a week. Don't worry." This message somewhat reassured Xiao Tong's roommates. However, as time passed, the situation became increasingly strange. After the message purportedly from Xiao Tong was sent, she ceased all communication with her roommates. Her social media accounts also remained inactive, which was out of character for her and caused further concern. Consequently, her roommates attempted to contact Xiao Tong's friends in Minnesota, but unfortunately they had not heard from her either. Before they knew it, it was September 17th, more than 10 days since Xiao Tong had disappeared. Deeply worried, her roommates reported the incident to the local police. The authorities immediately launched an investigation. Since Xiao Tong had mentioned driving to Minnesota, the police decided to investigate the bus stations. However, the investigation did not find any records of her taking a bus. They also searched Xiao Tong's apartment, but found no valuable clues. Ultimately, the last known location of Xiao Tong was a small hotel at 1521 South Avenue, Nevada City. The hotel owner stated, "I remember this couple well because they had stayed at my hotel several times." Based on the information provided by the hotel owner, Xiao Tong and her boyfriend checked in at 4:30 p.m. on September 5th and stayed in room 218. On September 6th, the hotel owner saw Xiao Tong alone in the hallway. They initially planned to check out at 11 a.m. on September 7th. However, strangely, on the morning of September 7th, their car was gone and never reappeared. In other words, they left the hotel abruptly without checking out. As a result, the hotel owner inspected room 218 that afternoon and found that all their belongings were gone. Unfortunately, the hotel's surveillance camera system was broken, so it did not capture footage of the two leaving the hotel. The police also checked nearby surveillance cameras and discovered that before checking into the hotel, Xiao Tong and her boyfriend had visited a convenience store at a nearby gas station where they bought some drinks and snacks. During this time, no one was following them. Based on these findings, the police began to suspect that Xiao Tong's disappearance was related to her boyfriend, Li Xiangnan. Firstly, Li Xiangnan, despite being Xiao Tong's boyfriend, did not report her missing to the police. Secondly, Xiao Tong's roommates advised the police to investigate Li Xiangnan thoroughly because he seemed untrustworthy. Finally, after their investigation, the police confirmed that Li Xiangnan was the last person to see Xiao Tong. With this information, the police immediately launched an investigation into Li Xiangnan. Born in 1991 in Shanghai, China, Li Xiangnan later moved with his parents to Wenzhou, Zhejiang Province. He came from a well-off family and had a good education. Li Xiangnan also had a decent academic record, and his parents had high expectations for him, planning to send him to the US for further studies. However, Li Xiangnan faced a common challenge for Chinese international students: the need to improve his English. As a result, he attended a TOEFL English training center in Beijing for preparation. It was at this training center that Li Xiangnan met Xiao Tong. Born in 1994 in Dalian, China, Xiao Tong was an only child. Her father was a government official, and her mother was a homemaker. The family enjoyed a relatively comfortable lifestyle, and Xiao Tong displayed intelligence from a young age, particularly in mathematics. Her dream was to become a biologist. During her high school years, Xiao Tong participated in many math competitions and achieved excellent results. Initially, she was very confident about the International Mathematical Olympiad because a good ranking could allow her to be admitted to university directly without having to take the college entrance exam. Unfortunately, Xiao Tong did not perform well in the competition, while her boyfriend excelled and passed. Disappointed, Xiao Tong came up with a bold idea to study abroad in the United States. Although the family was not wealthy, Xiao Tong's parents loved her dearly and decided to support her, even using all their savings to send her to study in America. In July 2011, Xiao Tong went to an English training center in Beijing to improve her language skills. It was there that she met Li Xiangnan, who was also attending the program. Li Xiangnan was instantly captivated by Xiao Tong's beauty and immediately fell for her. Upon learning that they both had the goal of studying in the United States, he decided to pursue her earnestly. Perhaps Li Xiangnan also wanted a companion in a foreign land. Their relationship naturally developed, and they quickly became a couple. Li Xiangnan even met Xiao Tong's parents. Although her parents were not particularly fond of Li Xiangnan, they did not prevent their daughter from dating him, thinking it would be good for her to have a friend by her side in the US. In 2012, Xiao Tong and Li Xiangnan went to study in the United States, though they attended different universities. Xiao Tong was admitted to Iowa State University, while Li Xiangnan was accepted at the Rochester Institute of Technology in Minnesota. These schools were over 1,000 kilometers apart, requiring at least a 15-hour drive. It was a significant geographical distance. During the first year, Li Xiangnan occasionally visited Xiao Tong, but the distance made each visit time-consuming and expensive. Friends of Xiao Tong revealed that they did not trust the relationship between Xiao Tong and Li Xiangnan. There were other guys at school pursuing Xiao Tong and having close relationships with her. Speaking of their lives in the US, Li Xiangnan came from a well-off family and had bought a BMW for commuting, while Xiao Tong had purchased a 1997 Toyota Camry during her internship. When they went out, they used Xiao Tong's Toyota. Notably, during the police investigation, it was discovered that on September 3rd, 2 days before Xiao Tong's disappearance, Li Xiangnan had called her. She unknowingly answered the call, unaware that her conversation was being overheard. At that time, she was complaining to her friend about Li Xiangnan's behavior. She did not know that the entire 30-minute conversation had been overheard by Li Xiangnan. Upon hearing his girlfriend's complaints, Lee Xiangnan was furious. He posted a message on social media saying, "My life is worthless." Despite this, they still decided to go out together over the weekend. However, Xiaotong mysteriously disappeared afterward. Therefore, this incident was undoubtedly related to Li Xiangnan. The police were preparing to summon Li Xiangnan to the station for questioning. However, they were unable to contact him. Upon further investigation, the police discovered that Li Xiangnan had returned to China on September 8th. He had booked a one-way ticket through a former student. Since there were no direct flights from Iowa, where he was living, to China, Li Xiangnan first flew to Chicago and then quickly flew back to Beijing. This only strengthened the police's suspicions. As for Xiaotong, the police found no information about her leaving the U.S. They believed Li Xiangnan was evading justice. Although they couldn't apprehend him immediately, the police searched his car and apartment but found no clues. The apartment was in disarray, clearly indicating that the owner had left in a hurry without cleaning up. Naturally, during the investigation, the police continued searching for Xiaotong, but she and her car seemed to have vanished without a trace. After news of her disappearance became public, Xiaotong's friends at Iowa State University and many other students posted on social media to help find her, but their efforts were in vain. As time passed, by September 26th, it had been exactly 20 days since Xiaotong's disappearance. On that day, a resident reported to the police an unpleasant odor emanating from a parking lot near building number 44 in Iowa. The police arrived at the parking lot and discovered that the odor was coming from a Toyota with the license plate 287JDZ, which was Xiaotong's missing car. The car had been parked there for several weeks. On the driver's seat, they found Xiaotong's broken phone. On the back seat, there were documents including a copy of Li Xiangnan's flight ticket. In the trunk, they found a large luggage bag, which was the source of the odor. You can probably guess what was inside. Even though the police were mentally prepared, they were still horrified and stepped back when they opened the luggage. Inside, they discovered a female body in an advanced state of decomposition, along with a large bag and a towel. After examination, they confirmed that the body was indeed the missing student and owner of the car. She had died from suffocation and had sustained head injuries from physical impact. Additionally, she was missing 2 teeth. The towel in the car was identified as belonging to the hotel where she and her boyfriend had stayed. At this point, the nature of the case escalated from a missing person to a homicide. However, the suspect, Li Xiangnan, had fled to China. As you may know, there is no extradition treaty between China and the United States, so even if he were apprehended in China, Li Xiangnan could not be extradited to the U.S. for trial. This international pursuit and prosecution posed significant challenges for the investigation. Nevertheless, the investigation had to continue. As the police delved deeper, they discovered that Li Xiangnan appeared to have premeditated the crime. On the afternoon of September 5th, at around 4:30 p.m., they went out, and after checking into the hotel that evening, Li Xiangnan asked his classmate named Paul to book him a flight back to China. On September 6th, while Xiaotong returned to school to handle some tasks, Li Xiangnan drove to 2 stores and purchased a luggage bag and 2 weights. The weights were 20 pounds and 15 pounds each, and he placed them in the trunk of Xiaotong's car. You can clearly see images of Li Xiangnan on the surveillance cameras of both stores. Notably, when purchasing the luggage bag, he intentionally sat down on the floor to compare its size, seemingly checking if he could fit inside it. He eventually chose a large black luggage bag. By the afternoon of September 6th, after Xiaotong returned to the hotel, no one saw her again. Based on the clues, the initial crime scene was likely the hotel, and the murder occurred sometime between the night of September 6th and the morning of September 7th. With this reasoning, the police re-examined room 218 of the hotel and found some traces of blood near the headboard, which were confirmed to be Xiaotong's. Xiaotong's father also provided information that on the morning of September 9th, when he was chatting with his daughter via the WeChat app, his request for a video call was declined. At the time, he didn't think much of it, but now he realizes that Xiaotong had already been killed, and it was Li Xiangnan using her phone. Li Xiangnan attempted to create the illusion that Xiaotong was still alive by using her phone to communicate with her roommates, classmates, and parents. This deception bought him more time to escape. Additionally, a friend of Li Xiangnan revealed to the police that a month before Xiaotong's disappearance, Li Xiangnan had asked him how long it usually takes for the American police to identify a missing person. At the time, his friend found this question very strange. Looking back at all the related evidence, the police believed that Li Xiangnan had been planning to murder his girlfriend for a long time. Combined with the discovery of the weights near Xiaotong's body, the police theorized that these were premeditated tools. The intention was likely to dispose of the body in a river to hide the crime. Tracking Li Xiangnan's mobile phone, the police discovered that at around 4 a.m. on September 7th, his phone was located near a river in the area. However, the river was too shallow, which may have caused him to abandon the plan to throw the body into the river and hastily escape. Based on the injuries and cause of death, the police speculate that after being attacked at the hotel, Xiaotong did not die immediately, but suffocated after being locked inside the luggage bag. This case had a significant impact on the Chinese student community. At that time, there were around 300,000 Chinese students studying in the United States, and they followed the case's progress with keen interest. Many Chinese students made efforts to attend a memorial service at Iowa State University, along with Xiaotong's friends, colleagues, and professors. The ceremony was held on campus, where people lit candles and placed flowers to honor the young international student. Everyone remembered her as a girl who always had a smile on her face and was willing to help others. The news quickly spread back to China, and the fact that the suspect, Li Xiangnan, had fled back to China caused a significant public outcry. On social media platforms like Weibo and other forums, within just 2 days, there were over 150,000 posts and comments about the case, garnering millions of views. The main focus of these discussions was on where Li Xiangnan might be hiding, and whether the Chinese police would apprehend him. People also speculated whether Li Xiangnan might flee China for another country. Similar questions flooded the internet, but no one could provide answers. Even the Chinese police were unsure of Li Xiangnan's exact whereabouts. His parents stated, "We haven't seen our son either." This case involved the murder of a Chinese student by another Chinese student on U.S. soil, followed by the suspect fleeing to China. As a result, it raised legal and diplomatic issues between the two countries, making the handling of the case quite complicated. Due to the lack of an extradition treaty between China and the United States and the absence of solid evidence of Li Xiangnan's crime in China, even if found, the Chinese police would be unable to take strong action against him. This situation sparked public outrage. During this time, Li Xiangnan remained out of sight, causing even greater pain for Xiaotong's parents. To bring the perpetrator to justice, Xiaotong's parents called for increased cooperation and information sharing between the Chinese and American police to resolve the case as soon as possible. While there was no precedent for such a case between China and the United States at that time, China had experience cooperating with Canada and New Zealand on similar cases. In 2002, a Chinese student named Zhou Wei was murdered by her boyfriend, Li Yan, in Canada. After Li Yan fled to China, he was apprehended by Chinese police. Initially, the Canadian authorities were reluctant to share the case files with the Chinese police, fearing that Li Yan might be sentenced to death, which would be against Canadian law. Eventually, the two countries reached an agreement wherein Canada would share the case files on the condition that China would not sentence Li Yan to death. As a result, Li Yan was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment. Returning to Xiaotong's case, the Iowa State Police completed their investigation in March 2015 and recommended charging Li Xiangnan with first-degree murder, issuing an international arrest warrant. Fortunately, before the international community could become heavily involved, the Chinese police took action and actively communicated with their American counterparts. By April 2015, Chinese investigators, with support from American police, traveled to Iowa to reinvestigate the case and bring all the evidence back to China. After more than 8 months since the crime occurred on May 13, 2015, feeling there was no hope of escape, Li Xiangnan turned himself in to the authorities in Wenzhou, China. By March 2016, the case was brought to trial at the Wenzhou People's Court, with investigators from Iowa, USA present. During the trial, Li Xiangnan confessed to the crime, stating that it was a spontaneous act. He claimed that an argument had erupted between the two and he accidentally injured her. Li Xiangnan also insisted, "I always deeply loved Xiaotong." Li Xiangnan's family compensated Xiaotong's family with 2 million yuan, hoping for a more lenient sentence. When asked why he quickly booked a flight back to China, Li Xiangnan explained that he was in a bad state of mind and feeling very distressed. He also claimed that he had planned to return to China beforehand and that the purchase of the suitcase was for moving while the weights were for exercising. However, the prosecution did not accept his explanation. They argued that it was unreasonable for Li Xiangnan to want to go home to relax without informing his family first. His claim about moving was also dubious, as he was merely relocating from one building to another within the same residential complex, and he already had a suitcase at home, making the purchase of an additional one unnecessary. The claim that he bought the weights for exercise was also questioned, since he did not buy them in pairs, and given his physical condition, the weights were excessively heavy. Additionally, the stores where he bought the weights and the suitcase were located quite far from his apartment, about a 2-hour drive, suggesting he was trying to conceal the purchase of these items. Additionally, Xiaotong's head and facial injuries, along with the loss of 2 teeth, did not align with Li Xiangnan's claim that he only strangled her with his hands. The prosecutor argued that the crime was not a spontaneous act of passion. Furthermore, from asking friends how long it takes for the police to find a missing person, to purchasing a suitcase and weights, and then asking a former student to help book a flight ticket, to using the victim's mobile phone to send messages, and finally fleeing to China to hide, all indicated premeditation. These were highly incriminating pieces of evidence against the defendant. As a result, the court found Li Xiangnan guilty of intentional homicide. Considering the severity of the crime's consequences and its negative impact on society, Li Xiangnan was sentenced to life imprisonment and stripped of his political rights for life. Subsequently, Li Xiangnan filed an appeal, claiming that the American police investigation had errors, the evidence was unreasonable, and he hoped for a reduced sentence. However, after an investigation, the court concluded that the audio and visual evidence provided by the American police under the legal cooperation request was authentic, followed proper procedures, and could substantiate the case's facts. Therefore, the court rejected Li Xiangnan's appeal and upheld the original sentence. The judge in the case also noted that during sentencing, the court took into consideration Li Xiangnan's confession and the economic compensation provided to the victim's family. Avoiding the death penalty was already a merciful decision for him. However, in June 2020, after 4 years in prison, Li Xiangnan received 6 commendations for good behavior, positive rehabilitation, and diligent study while serving his sentence. Consequently, his sentence reduction proposal was approved and his punishment was reduced to 22 years in prison. With this sentence, he is set to be released in June 2042, by which time Li Xiangnan will be over 50 years old. That is the final outcome of this story. What do you think about the sentence given to the perpetrator and the cooperation between the police forces of the United States and China? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.